10 signs you're not as mature as you think. Have you ever been told that you're not mature? What does maturity mean to you? Is it being tall, being calm in a discussion, or reaching a point where you no longer wet the bed? Well, today we will deconstruct maturity by defining exactly what it is not, and its different aspects. If you like the video and want to help us continue creating interesting content, we kindly ask you to consider the idea of subscribing to our channel and making a donation to support us. Your support is precious to us and will allow us to continue growing and improving our channel. You can do it here below, through the appropriate buttons, subscribe, and thanks. Finally, holding our breath, we will explore the signs of immaturity. Will you make it onto the coveted list of mature people? Keep watching and find out. What is maturity? There is no universal way of defining maturity because it is absolutely subjective. Someone who you think is mature is not necessarily mature for the next person, and sometimes you may think you are mature while I think you are the most childish person I have ever met. But can you be childish and mature? For the purposes of this video, I will define maturity as the ability to respond to a situation in the most appropriate way. Essentially, it means that if you stick your tongue out as a response in a discussion about the works of F.A. Hayek, you might be immature, or maybe not. The idea is that, at a certain point in life, society expects you to behave in a certain way. I didn't make the rules, and I doubt you can do much to change them. The expectation of behavior stems from a standard growth in the brain and mind of human beings that is almost universal. A 2-year-old child in California is just as likely to throw themselves in the middle of a supermarket and scream to get candy as a 2-year-old child in Ouagadougou. A 13-year-old who tries the same thing in any part of the world might find that their behavior is strongly unappreciated. But should a 10-year-old who is as tall as an 18-year-old behave like a young adult or like the child they are? Before answering this question, let's look at the aspects of maturity and how it can be viewed from different perspectives. Physical maturity is the most obvious type of maturity and the easiest to address, simply because it is visible. Babies go through phases after birth. They sit, they start to crawl, they reach the point where they only say, no, and then they start running around. The puberty monster strikes, and sometimes pimples are all we need to identify a 14-year-old. This and the mood swings, although they may not be particularly visible. We also see the development of breasts in girls and the deepening of the voice in young men along with the development of facial hair. At any point in life, differences in physical maturity may lead to the assumption that one person is more mature than another. Taller people may be considered leaders and are more likely to be popular than their shorter counterparts, as they are assumed to be more mature. Have you ever heard the expression, big baby? Well, this is the very definition of someone who may be observed as physically mature but immature in almost every other way. Imagine a masculine 6-foot man who doesn't know how to dress well. My point is that maturity is holistic, which is why the second aspect of maturity we will discuss is social maturity. As the name suggests, social maturity essentially involves being able to relate to others as required by age. Have you watched the early seasons of The Big Bang Theory? If so, do you remember Howard Wolowitz's social skills? Many people would say he behaved like a hormonal teenager. Others, less kind, might call him unpleasant. Social maturity is a matter of experience and choice, but at certain age ranges, certain social behavior is expected. A 5-year-old child without good manners can be excused, but a 32-year-old human being without respect for boundaries or personal space would be considered a bit strange. Possibly rude. How did you feel when you finally realized that the tongue rests on the upper part of the mouth and not the lower part? I discovered it quite recently, and my mind was blown. Intellectual maturity is a bit like that. You learn new things, sometimes you're surprised, sometimes absolutely unimpressed, but at every step, you increase your knowledge and reasoning abilities. Note that intellectual maturity should not be compared, for example, to a person's academic achievements. Cognitive maturity involves understanding something without necessarily engaging in a discussion about it or committing it to memory for future use. If someone is able to understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs without being interested in it, they are intellectually mature just as much as the one who will shout about it at the top of their lungs. The most difficult type of maturity to deconstruct is emotional maturity, although it may be the most important. Your dictionary defines emotional maturity as how well you are able to respond to situations, control your emotions, and behave like an adult in relating to others. Therefore, in any situation, An emotionally mature individual is expected for their age range will be able to look at things from different perspectives before drawing a conclusion. For example, a child who is told they cannot have a toy car might react by lying down in the middle of a shopping mall and screaming at the top of their lungs. Passers-by would look sympathetically at the mother, but no one would lose sleep over it, perhaps only the parents. However, if a 16-year-old is told that they have to wait a few months to get a car because their parents cannot afford it at the moment, they are not allowed to react in the same way as a baby. If they did, they would probably get a few million views on YouTube, maybe even 1 million. The child is spared because they are not mature enough to look at it from their parents' perspective. They want the Batmobile, and they want it now. As you grow up, you get a third eye, so you gain perspective. Earlier, I had posed a question. Is it possible to be childish and mature? Most people would think not. However, I personally believe that it is possible. Maturity is holistic, but human beings have some pockets of maturity greater than others. For example, you can find an impressive athlete who doesn't follow most of the concepts in class. Or an incredibly intelligent teenager who would melt at the prospect of having a conversation with another human being. All the aspects of maturity we have discussed are a matter of circumstance. Some circumstances force someone to grow up faster than they intended or should, which is why sometimes you see a teenager who can handle more stress than a middle-aged human being. So, what are the signs that you might not be a mature person? You don't become mature just because you've aged. I think you've figured that out by now, considering how the different aspects of maturity have been deconstructed. Emotional escalation and impulsive reaction are one of the most common signs of immaturity. Remember, I mentioned that emotional maturity might be the most important of all. When you find yourself in a situation, sometimes it is appropriate to shout and scream to make yourself heard, although it is usually counterproductive. However, in most cases, a healthy conversation is preferable when you're an adult. It's also more effective. When you throw tantrums because things didn't go the way you wanted or someone didn't accept your point of view, you're immature, plain and simple. For example, in a relationship, when your partner proposes a brand of toothpaste that will give you a good value for money and better results, the solution is not to sulk and go sit in a corner and never speak to them again. Listen to what they have to say, and if you don't agree with their suggestion, explain why. Tell them about your obsessive-compulsive tendencies that don't allow you to use another brand of toothpaste. Or that your grandmother dated the guy who helped the inventor of the toothpaste brand come up with the marketing idea. You know, something credible and effective more than the silent treatment. Immature adults don't even know what responsibility means, yet they think they've discovered responsibility. Have you ever met someone who never does what is expected of them? They're the type of person who shows up to an 8 a.m. meeting at 8:45 a.m., casually dressed, and with a slight smell of the adventures of the previous night. Yet they expect to be forgiven for their mistake without acknowledging they've made one. At the same time, when you, a responsible adult who knows how to keep time and hide their weekend adventures, submit a report late, well, because of your weekend adventures, that same irresponsible person will crucify you. They will crucify you in the office bathroom, in their kitchens, and on their in-laws' patio. The bottom line is that when you can't take responsibility for anything, you're an infantile adult. An immature adult is also one who is vain, egocentric, and very interested in the outward appearance of something or someone. Note that all these are in one sentence because only the combination of the three makes them immature. This means that you could be vain or have an ego and not necessarily immature. Vanity is defined as excessive pride and admiration for one's own achievements and appearance. An egocentric person is one who is excessively presumptuous and self-centered. A person with these three qualities does not respect or listen to anyone who does not meet their standards of outward appearance. This means that if you're having a bad hair day or even just a bad lip swell, where your lips are swollen from your adventures, they wouldn't want to be associated with you. For them, you are what is seen, nothing more. You don't have opinions that matter to them, and even if you did, they wouldn't be interested in exploring them because of your appearance. Furthermore, they believe they are the most important person in the whole world, that the world revolves around them, and that they are entitled to everything they want. Ego is a good thing, but only when it strengthens self-esteem. Not when it makes you believe you are God's gift to humanity. Basically, an emotionally mature person has the following qualities that are probably lacking in immature people. They are self-confident without being egocentric. For them, it is more important to feel comfortable with themselves rather than being better than everyone else. They understand that sometimes it makes sense to be silent. This doesn't mean they don't express their opinion, it just means they know when to keep quiet. Effective communication is very important to mature people. When they want to convey information to another person, they do it directly and without frills. A bit like this video. They also understand that the only drama that should be in their life comes from the reruns of Scandal on Netflix. Toxic people and people who hinder the achievement of their goals should not be part of their life, because what would be the purpose? Change is neither scary nor completely destabilizing for mature people. Such people understand that nothing is set in stone and that, in the blink of an eye, everything could change. The second coming could happen, or the apocalyptic theories of movies could come to life. Immaturity is not illegal. It's not even one of the 7 deadly sins. But what maturity gives you is perspective, and this is the most important ability anyone must have to survive in this world. Have you assessed yourself? Are you mature? Maybe not so much? The good news is that you can become a mature person if you choose to do so. Let us know about your practical experience regarding today's topic by writing it in the comments. And do not hesitate to ask questions, we will respond to the best of our ability. Do not forget to share your opinion with us and leave a comment. If you also leave a like, it would be great. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.